Alrighty, just got back from the theater, watched The Wild Robot, and this is definitely a movie, like with most movies I want to watch. Something I heard about, when it was first announced, and have been waiting for it patiently. And, I obviously it's, one of those things where it's like marketed towards children, but just like with Transformers 1, surprisingly, I think it's more welcoming for all ages and it kind of goes back to when I think about when I was growing up as a kid, movies that I think of very fondly that you could say were for kids, but, had very mature themes and symbolism, metaphors, all that. And I can think of The Iron Giant and Treasure Planet. The Iron Giant, which asks the question, if a gun had sentience, would it choose to be a gun? And also, what if a gun could speak and didn't want to be a gun? The sole purpose of its design is to kill. And mind you, I mean, that opens up more topics about guns and stuff, but, in my opinion, I mean, yes, there's sports shooting, but we all know why guns were made. So it asks that question. With Treasure Planet, you have a troubled child, teenager, who doesn't have a father in his life, who meets a father figure who's clearly kind of a piece of shit, and the relationship of like an adult growing to be a better person, and the teenager learning to become an adult, and all this, all this good stuff. Where even at basically 30 years old, I can watch these movies and it can feel relatable. It can feel adult. It doesn't feel straight for child, like children, like I would think of, like, a Moana or a Despicable Me, where it, maybe Moana is not the best thing, but like a Despicable Me, where I feel like it's definitely more geared towards children with less of a certain mature tone or anything. But I remember seeing the trailer for this, and I love all things like robots and stuff like that, like the old movie Robots. um it gave me the vibe of like iRobot. I mean, a lot of these robot-esque movies, iRobot, Castle in the Sky, whatever, where it's basically not, it's a robot in a setting where it learns to basically be human, to have a soul. And I feel like it seems like a tired trope, but you can basically redo that idea over and over again. And so watching the trailer for this, I was like, I can get the sense it might be sad, By watching it, you're like, oh, God, is the robot going to die at the end? It doesn't, thank God. Um, Animation style looked cool. Um, so, and it's not like really human folk. There are humans in the movie, but very briefly. So I was worried, like, is this like, you know, going to be human focused? And it's like the art, like iRobot, like man versus machine, or what, like what's going on. But it's basically the one robot and a bunch of animals. And now having watched it, it's a great movie. Sad. Um, maybe maybe I wouldn't say geared towards, but a lot of themes of I would say motherhood and family. So I could definitely see moms watching this, probably maybe getting a little bit more like teary eyed than a dad would. In a sense, the movie overall is pretty like heartfelt, but in a bittersweet way. And it has just a good beginning, middle, end. I mean, there's a part where you kind of think it might end, but in my mind, I was like, well, the trailer shows like bad robots coming to the island, so I was like, I know it's not the end, but you could almost fit it as the end. But you basically have the main cast of Roz, the robot. I think it's supposed to be like Rosalind or Roz something, and then a number, and then there's the baby goose, and then there's the fox, voiced by Pedro Pascal. Which when I was first hearing it, I'm like, who is that? I was like, I recognize that voice, but it just sounds different. And it was very interesting to hear Pedro Pascal in this kind of manner. I think he did an excellent job. That's why I'm like, okay, like we're out of the Last of Us Mandalorian where it's just, monotone, like, where's the kid? No, we actually get like a different tone, so I can appreciate that him as an actor can do very good voice acting as well for like cartoons. And then the robot is voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, I think that's her last name, from what is that movie? The Jordan Peele movie. Oh my god, I can't remember. Basically, where there's like the clones. But she was also in A Quiet Place Day One. And it's so interesting because she does a robotic, almost like, obviously there's probably like a synthesizer effect, but very like robotic mannerisms, like, hello, I am here to tell you, blah, 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 whatever. Did a fantastic job. The movie does a good job of like, because when you're watching it first, you kind of go like, how are we going to get to the point of this robot caring for animals? And something this movie does wonderful is, because you would it's not that it's suspension of disbelief. I mean, it's freaking robots. But you would go, how is this robot talking to an animal? And what it does, in my opinion, very clever, is this is supposed to be a robot designed by the best of humanity and the smartest of humanity. So what it does is it sits there for a while to listen to every animal that walks by, and it's like deciphering the like animal language and translating it to English. And so we hear them speaking English, but in reality they're just like a duck is quack, but we as an audience hear them speak English. I thought that was a very well done. Like, I just felt like they took the care to not make it feel so stupid or like blatantly childish. They were like, hey, this is like an easy enough way to say how they speak English. And I was like, I buy it. I take it. It's like in Green Lantern when they're like, the ring translates everything. So you hear it in English, but I'm not speaking English. Good enough for me. And again, animation, great. Everything looked so good, and I just felt like it was so well paced. Not once was I thinking, ooh, they're kind of stopping the story to do filler. No, it's like beginning, middle, end. But even the end, it's like almost like secondary ending, because the robot wakes up on an island and is like, yo, what the heck? You find out why. And then the robot ends up with the baby goose in its care and has to take care of the goose. And these are task-based robots. So it basically falls into the task to raise the baby. And so there's that aspect. And then there's drama between the baby goose and the robot. And you find out why. That meets the fox. The fox is clearly an asshole. But, you start getting more of that character. There's just really good, like, character depth and growth, honestly. And not crazy growth, but just enough that would make sense for the story itself. And I feel like you're definitely going to recognize quite a bit of the voice actors in this. Ving Rhames is in it. For the life of me, cannot remember the guy's name, but Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean and Victor from Underworld, that guy, he's in it. And there was one more voice of a beaver. It's like a British man I recognize, but I can't remember. But again, just like a normal movie, it's got setups and payoffs too, which you'll notice. But I can just see this movie being like a kid growing up now. This is their Iron Giant. This is their treasure planet. And it was just such a good feeling to know that they can still make movies like that, in my opinion would be viewed as like a classic. Like some kid growing up now, when they're an adult, whatever, is like, oh, I look very fondly back on The Wild Robot. That was a good movie. Which apparently it's a book as well. I didn't know that, but I'd be curious to read the book and see what the differences are. And honestly, it sounds kind of odd, but I don't really want to spoil anything with this. It's a movie where I would really highly recommend you go watch it. It's just a feel good movie. I wouldn't say it probably, I mean, mind you, be different for, people with kids and stuff, but I I love the meaning of belonging and forgiveness, the feeling of being more than what the people around you think you are. You know what I mean? Like it does a great job of so many like messages, I guess you could say messages, where it's like good things can come of bad situations, and just because, you were born handicap is the only word I can think of. I don't know if that's fully correct, but the idea that you can become more, like than just being withheld or looked down upon because of a physical handicap or whatever. And just, I don't know. It was a good feel good movie, and it ends perfectly, basically. Just a good ending, because it gets to a point where you're like, oh, like, shit, that's sad. And then it just, the last, 30, 40 seconds, you're like, okay, okay, thank God. Like, that's a good, I like that as a closure, where they basically don't have to make another one ever again. It was perfectly beginning, middle, end, and where it leaves off, you're like, okay, I can kind of see where, we go from here. And I was honestly kind of shocked because in my theater, which is usually for adults, a lot of people brought their kids, and all the kids in the theater, man, they were quiet. They were sitting there paying attention. And it was actually a lot of their parents who wouldn't shut the fuck up and were sitting there, oh, oh, and making noises and shit while the kids were on their best behavior, which just made me laugh so hard. But 100%, like, you got kids, go take them to watch it. Even if you don't have kids, I'd say go watch it. It's just a nice movie to watch, you know? And it was nice seeing it on a theater screen. Now, I can't wait till it comes out on Blu-ray and I can watch it on my TV, because then it's going to look really, really nice and crisp. But I don't even want to get into spoilers. I just want people to go watch this movie and enjoy it. It's good. It's very good. I hope we can get more movies in this animation style like this, or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse kind of stuff. It just works so well. But until next time, that's about it for me. I'm out.